Hello, everybody, friends and beautiful people. Hello, how are you? It is Kathryn Massell, Elevated Consciousness Coach, 5D Visionary, Conscious Creatrix, and today I wanted to share with you some 5 key points, let's just say, around where you can start noticing that you're beginning to untangle or unhook from the 3D matrix that holds our consciousness in place in terms of how we view and shape and mold time and space here in the realms of 3D consciousness. And so 5 signs that you're untangling from the 3D matrix. And also, this is signaling and giving you a cue about where you are ready to embrace your next level of your awakening process. So I'm super excited to share this with you guys because I tap into the collective unconscious quite a bit, okay? And this is actually what's helped me greatly talk about what I am really delving into and exploring in great depth and detail right now with the 3D time matrix, timelines, and moving into elevated frequency bands of working with time. Hi, Courtney. Hi, Aga. Nice to see you guys here. Thank you. And if you are watching or you're here live with me now, welcome. Say hello. And if you are live or you're watching the replay later on, if you want to share this with your community, please feel free to do so. You can share right from my page here, my Conscious Creatrix page, which is my business page. If you've been following me for a while, you are aware that I am talking in greatly and highly emphasizing working with time, being able to opt out of the 3D time matrix and opt into those higher frequency bands of working with the rules of engagement of time that exist beyond the very limited sphere of reality that we consider the 3D time matrix that holds our definition of time and space. It gives value and meaning to our lives as we have worked up to this level of consciousness so far. But we are cracking this egg of perception. We are moving moving past the 3D time matrix, and we are moving into the soul matrix. And so this is meant to give you some guidelines about some things that you might be noticing in your own life, and maybe you haven't really put your finger on it yet or had a way to articulate what's happening. So I wanted to let you know that you're not alone. This is happening to many people throughout the collective consciousness, and it's making, it's a real head scratcher for a lot of people that they're having these things happen that I'm going to talk about here. And it's not limited to these 5 things. This list is not exhaustive, but it is a good snapshot of letting you know that you are participating in or have been participating in this simulation of the 3D time matrix, and it has served a purpose. It's not a bad thing. It has served a purpose for humanity up to this point. But like I said, we are at a level of frequency now where we are cracking out of this egg of perception. And not only is it important to notice that this is happening and that you are moving along this trajectory in your ascension timeline, sometimes at a very accelerated rate, but now what do you do? Now that you have this awareness and you are noticing this crack in the egg of your perception, where do you take it next? What are your next steps? What do you do next? So we're going to talk about that here today. And so, yes, I am talking about timelines. I'm talking about time. I'm talking about our journey through the ascension process is not just about anchoring in new ways of experiencing unity consciousness, but it is just as much about, if not more so, the ability that we have to opt out of certain limitations in terms of where our consciousness is tethered to old ways of beings, old ways of being, old thought paradigms, old belief systems, paradigms of power, structures of belief that are held in place through the hive mind of collective consciousness that are just not serving humanity and in fact are keeping us and creating obstacles to our further movement in the ascension process. When we engage with the 5D time matrix, we engage with these higher frequencies, we are really learning how to be time benders. And when we do that, we are downloading a way of being to the mass collective consciousness that wakes the entire human family up to their unrealized potential, that literally through our work of working with timelines beyond the 3D time matrix, we are lending a hand to the rest of humanity and saying, hey, it's really awesome up here. There's unrealized, unmapped potential that you could not wrap your head around when you were limited to the time-space continuum of 3D and confining your reality to that scope of consciousness. We've kind of exhausted the benefits of using the 3D structure of time. And so we're now just kind of looping through a lot of the same repetitive cycles of experience, receiving the same outcomes, mass generating an ego-driven level of consciousness. This is not how we ascend. Okay, so we need to learn how to opt out of this way of being. So that's what Out from Behind the Veil of 3D, Timelines Expanded Masterclass is all about. You are able to join for $249 until the 28th of this month of November. And then the price goes up to $379. It's going to go up even more the next time I teach it live, probably in March or April. So getting in now allows you to not only receive the self-study course that's available right now as 5 modules, and you can start binging on this stuff today. And I do recommend that you do, because there's so much to learn about this stuff that you need to listen to the course a couple times, or these modules that I'm sharing a few different times, because at first you're going to try to unravel it intellectually and you realize that that's kind of futile, that you need to unravel it here, or allow the information rather to disseminate here in the heart space rather than in the head. It's not something we really get on an intellectual level, because we are working with multidimensional perspectives here. And so we have to bring this information to the higher self avatar to help us disseminate this information, and we need to bring it into the heart. And so you're going to learn all of that in Timelines Expanded right now. But we're taking this Timelines Expanded course and expanding it. So the next time I teach it live, which is mid-January-ish, it will be 8 modules, taught twice a week for 4 weeks. And it's really going to cover a lot. And it really does blow your mind. I don't mean to be telling tales out of school here. I don't mean to be cocky or arrogant or have any ego at all when I say this. But there is no program out there like this right now. Because I'm not talking about time in a way that it's just conceptual. I am giving you practical application, because everything about stretching your consciousness to work beyond the 3D confines of time is experiential. So if you don't have a tool or technology to practically apply this way of stretching your consciousness and moving to the higher frequency bands of consciousness, everything that you're learning about time is purely academic. That is not the way I teach. That is not the way I share this information. It is all about experiential, playing with this energy. And only in that way do you realize what timeline you're on for yourself, what timelines you're holding that are creating these obstacles or barriers that are holding you back, where we're participating in false timelines, and how to opt out of that. So you could practice. We get discussion and practice in every class except the first one, which is where we do 2 really powerful activations that open up your ability to stretch the consciousness in a way where you don't feel like you want to go into spiritual, emotional, or mental crisis. We open up the 4th eye, and we open up the gateway to the solar spine, which actually gives you an upshot in your response of your central nervous system. This is really important as we learn to use these tools, because we can kind of go in shock and awe about this stuff. And we can create undue trauma or unneeded trauma when we learn this stuff and we don't give ourselves a good foundation in our body to ground this and protect our energy, so that we're working with this stuff without any distraction, right? Without having to siphon off our energy to just being in survival mode. So this is a class that's going to blow your mind. No one else is teaching it in this way, where it is just beyond the conceptual. It's not just academic. It is experiential. It is practical. It is applicable in your daily life. That's how I teach. That's how I share, which makes this course like nothing else out there. Okay. And how do I know? Because I looked for it. I did a lot of research behind the scenes before I put this together, a lot of working with my guides and my spirit team to make this cohesive and make it congruent and coherent in a way that you guys can download this into your consciousness no matter where you're at. There is a way for you to disseminate this information, because we work with the higher self exclusively. And so I know that this is not out there because I looked for it. I tried to find it myself. And so I was like, well, if it doesn't exist, I will create it. And it made me realize the more and more I do this work, and the more I'm putting this container transformation together even more profoundly for the next live round, I've realized not only is this stuff blowing my mind as I work with it, but it's also making me realize what a huge deficit there is in understanding what ascension is, because we're just talking about, in a lot of ways, the things that we need to opt into to merge with unity consciousness of 5D and beyond. But we're not really giving much credence or talking too much about what we need to opt out of and what we need to untangle from and what we need to dismantle first in order to create the energetic space to hold this frequency and be this container of transformation, of moving into ascension without the barriers, without the obstacles, without the distortion. So there is a huge deficit at play in how we are learning how to work with ascension. And a lot of us are walking around and not understanding that there is a false ascension agenda. There are false ascension timelines, and 5D isn't all love and light. Okay, so we need to learn how to navigate and be able to tell the difference between these false agendas and where the, alignment of the actual divine human blueprint of ascension is taking hold, and where we can anchor our energy into that instead. So, like I said, no one else is teaching this. So it's $249, which is an incredible value for what you are getting out of this program and what you will receive by, when you join now, you get the self-study course and you get access to the 5 modules from the last time I taught this, but you will be invited to the next live round at no extra cost to you. It'll go up to $379 on the 29th of this month on Black Friday. So get in on this course. It is going to be amazing. It is going to blow your mind. Some of the people who have just been joining have been saying, oh my God, I just started like class 1 and class 2 and already this stuff is blowing my mind. Already my dreams are crazy. Already things are shifting in my perception of reality. That's the crack in the egg of your perception that I'm talking about. So here we go. We're going to dive in, and I will have all this information in the comments for you guys to join. And when you do join, you get access to our private Facebook group, because there needs to be a lot of support and engagement. And so we create a community around learning this stuff together, because the more we fully bring in an understanding and a comprehension of this stuff, especially on a group level, on a collective level, the more we download this way of being into the mass collective consciousness that is on this process of waking up. And we create this ripple effect, this kind of chain reaction of awakening as we learn to work with this stuff. So here we go. Water, if you have it. It's always good to be hydrated when you learn this stuff. So 5 signs that you are untangling. Courtney Harper says, my egg has definitely cracked. 5 signs that you are untangling from the 3D matrix, and you are ready to embrace the next level of your awakening. And I'm looking at my notes here because I didn't want to forget anything, so excuse me for looking down here from time to time. So one of the first things that we start to notice when we are having that crack in the egg of our perception, and we feel like, things just don't seem the same that they used to be. Things don't translate the same. My energy feels like it's not going towards the same things that it used to. Some things just feel absolutely futile to me to explore. There's a reason for this. And we are going through, many of us, a massive questioning of our long-held beliefs. And I'm talking about long-held beliefs in terms of your individual long-held beliefs and collective long-held beliefs, meaning paradigms of belief, thought forms that are held in place by the collective of mass consciousness. This is largely perpetuated by our understanding of and our kind of workings within the mechanism of the 3D sphere of space and time, okay, which is only a very limited sphere of reference that is inside the entire universal energy matrix. So we're working within a very confined realm of experience, and we're calling everything truth based on this very limited confine of our consciousness. This is what blows wide open when we start working with 3D time and we start stretching our consciousness to work with tools and technology that exist outside of the 3D time matrix. And so this is already happening. This 3D time matrix, this egg of perception, is already cracking. So what it's doing is making us question our long-held beliefs. Now this could be stuff that is about your family, especially timelines held in your family that may be aligning with lack or poverty or trauma, making you do a lot of questioning. Many of you are opening up to this idea that you are a legacy breaker. You are breaking the chains of the legacy of trauma or lack in your family, and you were born at this time on planet Earth to be this gift to the legacy of your family, to break certain legacies of trauma. This is not a coincidence, and this is part of that long-held belief kind of questioning that's going on. We might be questioning our very origins as human beings, questioning the timelines of history. And what we know about history, based on this very limited confine or sphere of our perception about phone calls coming in, is very limited. So as we open up to working with 3D time, we are actually opening up more of our, let's just say, genetic history, our timelines here of being in our original human divine blueprint of DNA here on Earth. As we wake up to working outside of 3D time, we are actually encoding more of our original human blueprint of our DNA that allows us to access a different history, okay? This is all happening on an unconscious level for many of you, on a conscious level for some of you who are really tuned in and plugged in, but this is part of the awakening process here at this time. And what else are you noticing? The feelings that you're having of existing outside of time, meaning being this kind of conscious or objective observer instead of being the subjective observer where you would be saying things like, why is this happening to me? You start moving into that that feeling or the noticing that you are existing kind of outside of time, where you have this feeling of like you're stepping outside of society, where you're feeling like you're seeing things happen, but you're not really involved in it. You're not triggered by it. Maybe not as much as it used to be. Maybe you're triggered by some of it, but a lot of it you're just saying, isn't that interesting? This is you being in your objective observer, your God self, your highest avatar of self, and observing, witnessing, noticing, rather than being triggered by it, okay? This is happening for many of you. The feelings of existing outside of time. This coincides with feeling outside of the norms of society, what is acceptable, what is believed largely, roundly by society, what's feasible in terms of what society says is possible or even probable. You're deciding to, maybe on an unconscious level first, kind of just be like, isn't that interesting that belief is still there? I don't know if I believe that anymore. I don't know if that still resonates for me anymore. I don't know if I'm still triggered by that anymore. And so you're starting to move with a little bit quicker, with I should say the momentum of a stretched consciousness, kind of pushing yourself out of this egg of perception. Sorry, my dog is freaking out right now. Finn! Sorry. Sorry. I have a very active animal who likes to come here when I'm doing my lives. So what is acceptable, what is feasible by society, you're questioning all of it. You're really starting to be like, I didn't never notice that before, but I'm noticing it now. And isn't it funny that I used to live my life by this certain credo or this way of being, and I don't really feel that way anymore. So you're starting to just kind of feel okay with, and not necessarily questioning, like some of you might be still questioning, like, well, where am I going to get judged if I feel this other thing? Or where am I going to get looked at funny if I start saying these things? Some of you are just going into this kind of fearlessness and saying, you know what? I don't really care. And the people who aren't going to get me, well, maybe they weren't meant to be part of my tribe, or maybe they're just kind of naturally falling away from my level of awareness now, and that's okay, because it's making room for those people to come into my life who do jibe with my vibe, right? And we're kind of feeling like it's not a resignation. It's more of like isn't that interesting? But isn't it kind of all okay at the same time? You guys getting me? Are you feeling me on that? And I know there's many of you who are watching who are feeling that right now. Okay, so that was number 2. Number 3, we have an increased awareness of our progression of thought, meaning our progression of thought to form. okay, and how exactly we are creating. And Courtney says that literally just happened. Olivia says yes, yep, yeah. So you guys are feeling me on this, okay? This is good. Even though it might put us in a place where we feel uncomfortable for a little while, this is a good thing. This is a great cue from the universe that's saying, you're waking up. You're becoming woke. You are, casting aside the stuff that just does not resonate anymore and creates, let's just say, more of the false timelines that we just don't have to opt into anymore. We don't have to energetically invest or fund these timelines where we feel like we are obliged to someone for something, or we owe somebody or society something by believing this thing and just, keeping the status quo just for the sake of not rocking the boat. Many of us are like, yeah, no, nah, kind of done with that, kind of over that. What did I ever really get out of that anyway, right? And you start to question it in a way where you're almost laughing about it sometimes. You're like, isn't that silly that I'm doing that or this person's doing that? And it's not in a place where we're necessarily judging other people, but more of a noticing, more of an awareness. This is also a sign that you're going into 5D, is when you're losing the judgment around it, right? You're not saying this person is other because they're perhaps on a different timeline than I'm on. They're just going through the awakening process too. And there's almost that recognition from a heart space where you are heart to heart with this person, soul to soul with this person. This is how you also know you're entering into the soul matrix. Like, I was that person a year ago. I was that person 2 years ago, 5 years ago. And we move into a place of holding that space empathetically. We're kind of holding the frequency for them because of the work that we have done to get us well past that point that we're at. We're holding that frequency in a way that is much more profound that way, because we are seeing ourselves mirrored in another. This is how you know you are moving into the soul matrix, okay? So number 3, increased awareness of the progression of thought to form, okay? It's this, another way to say it would be, it's this serendipity of it being a thought, just maybe even a fleeting thought in your mind about, wouldn't it be interesting or wouldn't it be cool if this happened? And then almost instantaneously sometimes there it is. And it shows up on the material plane that day, 2 hours from now. You have the thought and you notice that those kind of serendipitous signs from the universe that are showing you 1111 or 222 or 333 or 444 or whatever it is, signs that you are on the right track. And then you're like, oh, okay. Well, then I'm going to keep within this timeline of thought. I'm going to opt into my highest timeline for creating coherence of thought, of feeling, and then behavior as if this thing has already come to pass. The universe is showing me signs that, like, I'm on the right track, I'm doing the right thing. So we have this progression in our awareness of holding our frequency, meaning we have a coherence of thought. And we're like, if I just hold this a little bit longer, this thought, this feeling, this vision, and all the things that are lining up in coherency, creating a coherent, undistorted vibration of what it is that I hope to come to pass. Have you noticed how much more quickly those things are manifesting? And maybe not in the way that we had perfectly envisioned it to be. It doesn't always look exactly the way we want it to. But that something is showing up on the physical plane that creates a match in the frequency that you're holding. Okay? Or immediately, Rachel says, my odometer on 110,011 miles. That's awesome. That's awesome. These are signs, people. This is a sign that you are working with the serendipities. And I want to say something very quickly about the serendipities. The serendipities is a frequency band that aligns you with the tools and resources for that which you would create. And you as the divine creator being. And you as the divine creator being is where you are amassing that coherency of vibration. Okay? And you are creating something that is not just for your highest good anymore, but you have this progression of thought into form. How you accelerate that is your manifestations now are taking on the nuance of not only what is good for me, but what is good for the highest and best of all. Or holding it with the least amount of resistance for all involved. Do you guys get goosebumps when you say it that way? You should. And that is another sign that you are working with the serendipities, okay? The serendipities, They are a tangible frequency, okay? They are holding a frequency in the photon band of the higher frequencies that I'm talking about, the higher frequencies that we are stepping into. And you can call them to you to help with your manifestations, okay? Rachel says 555 yesterday immediately on a license plate, followed by 222 on another, both within 30 seconds of each other. This is how quick this is happening, okay? And Rachel is in the Timelines Expanded Masterclass, and this only accelerates when you start working with, or I should say playing with, these tools and technologies of stretching your consciousness to work beyond the egg of perception of 3D time. Would you say that's true, Rachel? That these serendipities have somehow sped up a little bit since you started doing this work and playing with stretching your consciousness in this way? This stuff works very quickly, okay? Very, very quickly. So that end result is really creating, and this is also part of number 3. This is kind of taking the third key step a little further. The end result of this kind of sometimes instantaneous, immediate manifestation that's happening of thought into form, when you have that coherence of vibration, when you're holding that nuance to it of this, I'm asking to show up in this way or better, for my highest good, but for the highest good of all, for the least amount of resistance for all involved. Your manifestations, when you're holding that space, you are being a bigger frequency holder for the entire planet. So you are pulling the highest frequencies of everyone else who's working on a similar timeline to you to accelerate the momentum of your manifestations. Yes. Okay? Rachel says, sped way the fuck up. I love it. I love it. And it's exciting. Like when you work with this stuff, you feel giddy like a little kid. Like, I'm working on this stuff all the time. Like I am immersed in this, and not in a way where it feels like work. This really feels like play for me. And the more people I share it with, the more, the greater the community that I'm creating around sharing this stuff, the more fun it is. Because these little epiphanies that everyone is having and everyone is sharing in the group, they're like, oh my God, Kathryn, this happened today. And people are messaging me and emailing me like, oh my God, I just listened to class 2 and this happened, or that happened, and this happened, and oh my God. And all this creative inspiration is flooding in. I don't even know what to do with it. It is wild. And the reason why is because it starts creating a ripple through the entire fabric of your reality quickly, okay? Courtney says, Mercury concurs, just reset my internet. That's been happening to me a lot. There's a lot of resets. And a lot of communication breakdowns too that have been just kind of funny because I'm just recognizing them as like, yeah, that's kind of Mercury retro happening. So as a result of this kind of instant manifestation, what is happening for us are a lot of sudden, spontaneous, life-altering events, okay, that are only lending themselves to us creating a renewed, renegotiated contract, let's just say, of who we really are, that's more aligned with our human divine DNA blueprint. And the more we do that on an individual level, this work that we do with ourselves, there's no greater work that you can do than the work you do on yourself, because that ripples out and creates a chain reaction through the collective, especially if your end game is that you are working for the highest good of yourself, but for the highest and best timeline of all. This will only and ever ripple out into the collective and create chain reactions of events that help everybody wake up, okay? That's how important this work is of opting out of the 3D time matrix and stretching your consciousness beyond, okay? You're noticing more sudden, spontaneous, life-altering events that are allowing you to start redefining, renegotiating your contract for your entire way of being, okay? And many of you are noticing this. What used to define you, your identity of I am poor, or I am the broke healer, or these archetypes, which a lot of them, these archetypes that we hold are kind of blended or merged with false timelines. They're creating a false identity of who you are. And this is what keeps humanity asleep. And those who would hold humanity back from the ascension process want you to keep holding on to those archetypes, want you to keep investing and funding those timelines that are false, okay? And we're going to talk about that in the next live round of Timelines Expanded. It doesn't have to be scary though, because how it's not scary is that number one, you have the awareness that this is happening. So it's not happening to you unconsciously, okay? And the higher self aspect of you knows that you are participating in this level of awareness and that it's a game, these lower realms of the 3D consciousness paradigm. The higher self part of you knows that you're playing the game. But the higher self part of you is also saying, but you don't have to if you don't want to. And working with timelines in this way is where you don't have to opt into that if you don't want to. And you create a hyper sense of awareness of where you are investing or funding those timelines. Having that knowledge and level of awareness, that level of self-awareness is empowerment. And the only way to opt into the true ascension matrix is through empowerment, through sovereignty. You can't do that if you're unconscious. So it's not scary. It's actually incredibly empowering. So we need to just kind of be in that higher self perspective where we shift into like, it could be scary if I stayed unconscious, but it's not because I'm conscious. And I'm conducting my energy consciously. I'm conducting my thought processes, my feelings, my emotions, my behaviors that are matching in coherence and congruence. All of that is conscious. It's not scary anymore. Okay, so number 4. We are experiencing a call to arms. Okay? A wake-up call to clarity of purpose as it relates to the betterment of all. Not just you, but for the betterment of all. But it includes you too. It includes you. So you're going to be taken care of, and there's this kind of trust element that kind of is seeping in the more you do this work of timelines. It's a trust element of knowing not only how powerful you are and being able to surrender to that power a lot easier and with a lot less resistance, but also that you are doing this work on yourself. Simultaneously, it's rippling out into the collective for the betterment of all, which only makes you a bigger and badder and bolder frequency holder. You can't be a bigger, badder, bolder frequency holder if you are opting in for your unconsciousness. If you are still tethered to victimization timelines, which are very much part of false timelines, put in our own 3D matrix that we created. The 3D matrix of time is our creation as humans. We created it, we generated it, we perpetuated it. And we are perpetuating it by our level of funding or investing, let's just say, our energy into timelines, any timelines we're holding kind of a victimization principle. We are guaranteeing that humanity stays asleep if we keep doing that. But the way to opt out and be a bigger frequency holder is to create that hyper sense of self-awareness where you see exactly where you're doing it and saying, nope, no more. I'm opting into my highest and best timeline. I see that I was investing or funding my energy in this time. Well, but what's the opposite of that? What would be the opposite of that? Okay, I'm going to ask my serendipities, my guides, and collapse the timelines where I'm holding on to that investment. And then I'm going to siphon that off towards creating my highest and best timeline for X with the least amount of resistance for all involved. This changes everything. It changes everything. So this experience of the call to arms, this wake-up call to clarity of purpose, involves all of this. It's all whirled up in this. Relates to the betterment of all, not just you. And it allows you to be a bigger frequency holder. And some of you are walking around, and what I mean by this, what is the experience of being a bigger frequency holder? What does that feel like? Okay, well, you're walking around, okay? Let's just say you're in the Timelines Expanded Masterclass and you're doing this work and you're like aware of where you're funding energy into something you don't want to experience anymore. So you change it right there in the now. And then you start looking at people. Maybe you're in the grocery store, maybe you're in the post office, maybe you're driving around on the freeway, and you start looking at people around you and you start noticing, observing, not judging, noticing and observing, because you're in your higher 5D self-avatar when you work with time beyond the 3D matrix. And you are noticing and observing other people where they are still holding on to lower frequency thought forms, the way they're talking to another person, let's just say, the way they're complaining, showing up in the world and sharing their victim story with everyone, and kind of throwing their weight around in terms of like, I feel shitty, I want you to feel shitty too. And you kind of notice it in a way where you're just like, Well, that's too bad. I'm just going to bless them. This is the call to arms that I'm talking about, where we're not taking on their energy, but our energy of light is so big and so broad when we are a bigger frequency holder that we have more than enough blessings, we have more than enough heart space, more than enough higher frequency to share and hold for that person that is still waking up. Yes? This is the call to arms. Number 5. Let me get some water. Your choices are changing. In terms of your personal responsibility, which is another way to say responsibility, is your ability to respond. Okay? So, in the 5D and beyond sense of things, we are all responsible for one another. Only in a way that, like, I didn't cause someone's pain. That's not what I'm talking about when I say we're holding responsibility for each other. I'm talking merely about we all have responsibility for each other in terms of we have an ability to respond to everyone else in the human family, to every other sentient being on the earth plane. We have an ability to respond. That makes us responsible. Okay? That's part of the call to arms. It's rolled up in that. But our ability to respond to our outer environment, when we have a greater sense of responsibility, meaning we understand we have an ability to respond, to hold space, to be a better frequency holder, let's just call it that way. When you are at this level of awareness, you naturally lean into making different choices. That's just a natural part of this process. You are making different choices, different decisions that are aligning you, again, with your highest and best good, but also the highest and best good for all, based on an expanded scope of perception, based on a stretched consciousness, based on you being a bigger, bolder, badder frequency holder. It is easier for you than to make the God choice. And the God choice is simply that decision, that choice that you make, that is aligned with something that is self-affirming for you, meaning your highest and best interest, but also it's aligning with the highest and best good of all at the same time. Accessing what is highest and best for you while aligning with the frequency of what creates the least amount of resistance for all involved. Okay? That is the God choice. And it just becomes an easier progression when you stop opting out of that 3D time matrix. That crack in the egg of your perception, you just allow it to completely crumble. And then your energy, your scope of perception is out here instead of just here. This changes everything. I cannot overstate that. I cannot overstate how this creates a completely different definition, redefining of your entire reality. Everything changes, everything shifts. It has to. That's aligned with universal law because you are operating at a completely different level of consciousness and awareness. Everything else that lines up with that frequency comes along with it. So the things that aren't aligned with it just kind of naturally fall away. The people, the belief systems, the lower thought forms, the lower vibration feelings, the opting in or funding of false timelines that are keeping you in a matrix of someone that is a reverse shadow body of you, essentially. Okay? Who's fascinated by this stuff? Just give me a heart if you guys are following me and you're absolutely fascinated by this stuff, okay? So what's next? So maybe, you aligned with 2 of the things that I talked about here. Maybe you jibed with 5 of the things that I talked about here. Maybe you only jibed about, with one of the things I talked about here. That's fine. You are shifting. And what we're shifting into is this kind of second harmonic of the ascension process. So we had, let's just say 2012, leading up to 2012, but that's kind of a marker for us, is kind of this This first big awakening is part of the ascension process, okay? And understand the ascension process happens in stages. It happens at different stations based on our gradient of expanding awareness and consciousness. So just like we have lower realms of 3D consciousness, and we have higher realms of 3D consciousness where we're kind of moving into 4D a lot, and many of us are in 4D a lot. And 4D is like a staging area for us to step into 5D fully. But it's also very, very seductive because we're still playing with a lot of polarity here, but it's also where some angelic realms exist, but it's also where some fallen angelic realms exist. And there are timelines, false timelines inserted to create kind of a false ascension agenda. A lot of that does happen in 4D. So it can be a really seductive place for us to want to stay. And it can create this kind of place where we fund our investment into, let's just say, a false ascension agenda, where we keep playing out that shadow body version of self, and we convince ourselves, or we're kind of tricked into thinking, oh, I'm in 5D. But if you're still playing out the polarity, the duality, the judgment, especially if you're holding on to a lot of judgment, you're still holding judgment for yourself, other people, you're still blaming, you're resenting, you're still playing with that polarity of emotional frequencies in 4D, okay? But you're changing. You're starting, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in Timelines Expanded as well. But so what's next here? In this, as we opt into this second harmonic of ascension, let's just say, we learn how to be time benders. Because time benders are way showers. Time benders are those bigger frequency holders, where we are really helping humanity awaken by helping with more of the dismantling that needs to happen. Because just as much as we're learning how to opt into tools and technologies that help us stretch our consciousness into accessing 5D, it is just as much about dismantling the energies that are keeping us locked into 3D and false ascension timelines and the false ascension matrix, okay? This dismantling, this collapsing, this unhooking from more polarity. This is where we're learning how to do this. And it's being able to notice with hyper-awareness, hyper-self-awareness, where we're still exploring polarity, where we're still exploring duality. This is always and ever going to be part of 3D. But we don't have to opt into it as much as we are, okay? It's when you learn how to be a time bender that you opt out of more of that polarity. And you dismantle more of the paradigms, the timelines that hold it, okay? And you're really shifting, when you do that, you're shifting into the next octave, that next second harmonic of the wave of ascension, this harmonic universe. So how do you do that? Learning how to be a frequency holder for the next higher harmonic of ascension means that you can help the planet kind of roll up or wrap up the lower frequency bands of consciousness that are keeping us tethered to the lower realms of 3D consciousness, okay? We can close out those lower realms of 3D, and through the work that we do individually, kind of move everyone up in octave. So they're at least occupying the higher 3D realms of consciousness, ready to move into 4D, and then ready to kind of hop, skip, and jump into 5D, okay? This is creating a whole shift in our DNA. This is creating a whole shift in our cellular awareness. This is creating a whole shift in us being able to hold higher frequencies in our light body, okay? When you individually opt out of the consciousness that holds 3D space-time in place, and you learn how to play with the alchemical nature of time, yes, time is alchemy. Time is a tool, okay? When you learn how to do that, you learn how to play with the alchemical nature of time in the higher frequency bands. You help to reshape the entire fabric of your reality, and you become a way shower and a new earth frequency holder by becoming a time bender. Time benders are way showers. Why? Why are time benders way showers? Because by engaging with the 5D time matrix and beyond, the tools and technologies of 5D time and beyond, what you're doing is you're using practices that bridge the gap between 3D and 5D reality. Time benders, they download a way of being to the mass collective that wakes the entire human family up to their unrealized and untapped potential. What is possible and probable gets totally redefined for the betterment of all, okay? There's that call to arms again that I'm talking about. So the construct of time, it's just a tool. It's just a tool. It is a way of giving meaning, structure, and value to our reality as we have known it, okay? Human beings create time. We talk about this in Timelines Expanded. Human beings create time, and we are collectively agreeing to keep simulating the illusion of 3D time matrix, especially the lower realms of consciousness of the 3D time matrix. So we are the ones who have the power to redefine it. If we're the ones that create time, we are the ones that also hold the power and have the empowerment to recreate it, redefine it. Okay, that is our next step. You realized all this stuff, or maybe you really resonated with one or two things that I shared about these key signs of awakening. These are your next steps to learn how to be a time bender. And time is just a tool. And what is a tool after all, really? A tool is just a device used to extend the ability of an individual to modify features of the surrounding environment so that there are tangible and practical benefits felt and known. That's all a tool is. That's all time is. Okay? And we've exhausted the benefits of using the 3D structure of time as a tool. For our level of awareness, our stretched level of consciousness, it's an outmoded construct. So we're now just kind of looping through the same repetitive cycles of experience, receiving the same outcomes, mass generating an ego-driven level of consciousness that is keeping the human collective asleep. That's the lower thought realms of the 3D time matrix. We were never meant to stay at this level of awareness in how we understand and use time as a tool. Okay? We are waking up to something better. So in 5D, time exists, but with completely different rules of engagement. To wield time as a tool in 5D and beyond, you must be in the perspective of your 5D avatar of self, your higher self. Okay? This version of you already knows the flexible and alchemical nature of time. As I mentioned, this version of you already knows that you're playing the game of 3D polarity. Okay? But it's all happening for our growth. So it's not like the higher self is like, oh, you got to stop this. No, we need to go through these stages of ascension, the stages of experience. That's how we grow. Okay? That's the contract of us being humans. Okay? But when you bend, merge, stretch, jump, collapse time while in your 5D avatar of self, you're applying the benefits of playing with time at this level of awareness and bringing it into your 3D reality. This is why your entire fabric of life gets reshaped and it looks completely different, feels different on the physical plane. So you're stretching your consciousness when you play with time to become aware of vastly different possibilities for ways of being that are beyond the veil of your current scope of perception in ego-driven consciousness. This is fascinating. This changes everything. So here's what happens when you learn to play with time. When you take the next steps of being a time bender, this is what happens. When you bend, you stretch, you merge, you collapse, and you jump time. You understand how humans create time in 3D. You reshape your current relationship with the 3D matrix of time, and you change the consequences of your life. You know why you experience deja vu, and you experience it more as you start to play with time, but you understand why this happens. We talk about this in Timelines Expanded Masterclass. You get that past, present, and future, they're all existing simultaneously. It's just where you are funding your energetic investment at the time, that becomes your scope of perception, and so you'll experience it as past, or experience it as something in the future, or something in the present. But there are only and ever is different expressions of the now moment. So the past is just your perception of you in the past based on where you are right now. You see how you limit or diffuse your energetic investment by exploring timelines that are no longer advantageous for you or for the human collective. And you learn how to collapse these timelines so you can accelerate your path to manifesting what you do want, to where you do want to fund and invest your energy. You know how to opt out of the hive mind of mass consciousness, thus evolving you past the limitation, the separation, and the lack felt so strongly in the 3D time matrix of reality. You create desired higher timelines, highest timelines for your being in your now, by understanding how to access your fulcrum point. So we work with this in Timelines Expanded. It is a powerful place of focusing and investing and funding your energy to create a different reality for yourself. This is where, learning all this stuff, this is where your multidimensional forces interconnect in the present. And they help you manifest a reality that exists beyond the polarity and the duality you have explored over many lifetimes in 3D. And essentially you are wrapping up, putting yourself, if you're not already, in a culmination timeline where you are wrapping up your entire history of timelines of 3D and reconciling with them, making peace with them, accepting them, forgiving yourself, forgiving anyone else involved, forgiving any event or experience or situation. And when you do this, you blow your perception of what is possible wide open. And like I said and mentioned many times, the changes come very quickly. So I really hope that this has been helpful to you guys. I want to wrap this up because it's been about an hour, but I'm going to put the link down here for you to check out, Out from Behind the Veil of 3D, Timelines Expanded Masterclass. With the link, not only can you join and you'll get in and get access to all of the previous recordings of the last round, but you can check out the intro module for free, class module 1 for free. The price is $249 until the 28th of November. Then it goes up to $379, which is still an incredible bargain. For what you're going to experience and the lifetime benefits of this course is way underpriced. I'm aware of that, but I really want to get as many people in to this next live round as possible because it is going to blow your mind. I say that without ego. I say that without any kind of cockiness. There is no other course like this out there. I can say that in full confidence, and I really do mean it. And you have the Facebook group of support when you join because you're going to have questions. You're going to want to know how to work with this stuff more tangibly. You're going to want to know how to practically apply it to all different areas of your life. That's exactly why I have a private group and community of support around this class. And then we will start, when I officially announce the date of the next live round, it'll be on the 29th of this month of November, on Black Friday. That's when the price goes up to $379, and I will announce the official dates of when we start. It'll be around mid-January. So if this piques your interest and you feel the tingles, if you feel the feels big time with me talking about this, there is a reason you are ready for these next steps. If you resonated with the 5 key things that I talked about here, you are ready for your next steps. This is how we move into that next second harmonic wave of ascension. And if you are feeling this, you are ready. Everything that I'm saying here, don't take my word for it. Don't. Join the course. See for yourself. Listen to the intro module, okay? I have testimonials. Read the testimonials from the people that are already in there, who are still actively receiving the benefits of working with this material. This is going to blow your mind, okay? It's going to change the way you look at your life, your relationships, the way you view the world, the way you view yourself, your place in the world, your purpose, your meaning, your mission. It's all going to blow open. That's a good thing. So thank you all for being here. If you want to share this video, please feel free to do that. I want to wish you all so much love and peace, and thanks for being here. Bye-bye.